So, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the School Librarian Roundtable. And my name is Sharon Haupt. I'm a librarian here at Cuesta. I was formerly a library tech and a school librarian for San Luis Coastal Unified School District. And so I am hosting this fabulous group of people to talk about their experiences as in the school library setting. So what I'd like to do first is I'd like to go around and have everybody introduce themselves and also tell their job title, or if they're a Cuesta student and what year or where you are in the program if you're a Cuesta student. So if you would go ahead and unmute yourselves. And Michelle, I think we'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Hopper, and I am the district librarian for San Luis Coastal. And I also work part-time at Cuesta as a reference librarian.
Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Schwer. I'm currently a library and media tech at Laguna Middle School in San Luis Obispo. And I also am a part-time reference librarian at Cuesta College.
Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Spidell. I'm a part-time reference librarian at Cuesta, and I also teach one class in the library tech program, and that class is for school library. It's Library 210 is what I want to say. It's School Library and Media Center Services.
And you were a school librarian, an excellent school librarian for many, many years.
Thank you.
Ellen.
I'm Ellen Jagger. I'm actually not a school librarian. I'm a librarian at Cuesta, and I teach the young adult literature class at Cuesta.
Great. And Chris?
Hi, my name is Chris Bell, and I'm the district librarian for Atascadero Unified School District. And I also teach creative writing at the high school, at Atascadero High School.
Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie Lowe. I am the district librarian for Paso Robles School District.
Great. And Lori?
I'm Lori Buchholz. I'm the librarian at the North Campus of Cuesta in Paso.
Great. And then Aubrey, could you introduce yourself, please?
Let's see. I'm Aubrey Fairholzer, and I'm a student at Cuesta and Laverne University currently.
Great. Julian?
Hi, I'm Julian. I'm currently a student in the library tech program at Cuesta.
Great. Linda?
Hi, I'm Linda Selvage. I'm currently a student at Cuesta, the LIBT program. Probably have about another year to go, and I'm probably the most remote. I'm up in northern Central Valley of California.
Nice. And Carissa? Carissa, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm a student in LIBT as well.
Where are you in the program?
Except for the internship, I would be done, but I'm thinking it may take a little longer than I expected.
Yeah. So as we're going along and talking, Lori, did you have a question? Sorry, I see.
No, I was clapping that Carissa's almost done.
Yeah, yeah, that is great. So as we are going along and I have people talking about different things, please feel free to put questions in the chat if you have any questions. And please know that it's okay to interrupt or just, get more detail if we don't flesh things out enough. So the first question that I'd kind of like to pose and ask the group to share about is a little bit about their background and what brought them to being a library tech or a librarian in the setting. And so what drew them to wanting to work in a school library? So maybe Michelle, do you want to start us off, and then people can just jump in and share their experiences and what they did, what they have?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I actually was a horticulture major at Cal Poly and went a totally different direction. Once I graduated, I became interested in school libraries and started volunteering at my son's school and loved it. And I ended up going back to school and going to Cuesta to get my library tech certificate. And then after doing that, I went to San Jose State to get my master's, and then went on to get a teaching credential and teacher librarian certificate. So it was a very roundabout way. I started volunteering at my child's school in the garden, and then got interested in the library, and then loved the library so much. And I actually loved the library at Cuesta, loved using the digital resources even through San Jose State. And I think that being an inquisitive person and always looking for a why is kind of what drives me and keeps me going, and I keep going back to school because I just like to know, and I like to research things, and I feel like that's kind of what draws me and keeps me in libraries.
Chris, did you want to share?
Sure. So when I was completing my undergraduate degree, I originally wanted to be an English teacher at a high school. And at the same time I was student teaching, I was also working a work study position at a public library in the town where I was going to college. And I loved both of those things because I have always loved to read. But I found I would be really stressed out when I was at school teaching all day, and then I would be so relieved when I got to the library and got to do my library shift in the evenings. And I don't know why it took me so long to figure out that, hey, I could just be a librarian instead of a teacher, or a teacher librarian, until the woman who was the manager of the children's department at that library pulled me aside and said, you know, if you really love this, and I think you're really good at it, you can get your master's degree in library science. And up until that point, I had never really known that that was an option in education. So I was super excited by that, and ended up going to library school after I worked a couple years at that public library. And I kind of fell in love with it for the same reason Michelle did, in that it kind of was a great way to marry like my love of literature and working with kids in an environment where I could do all the fun stuff and not have to be staying up all night grading and planning, which I also still love to do. But so that's kind of what drew me into the field. And what keeps me staying in the field is because I love connecting people with resources and books. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me.
Stephanie?
I had a very similar experience to Chris. So I did my undergrad at UC San Diego and studying history. Not sure really what I was going to do with that degree when I graduated, but I didn't think of that at the time. And I had one of my husband's friends was working at the Geisel Library on campus. And so she said, hey, they're hiring. So I thought I'd give it a shot. It was the government document department, very dry and boring, but still it was being in an amazing library. And then after I graduated, I ended up working at Qualcomm, their private corporate library. And then when we moved to Orange County, I went to the UC Irvine Preservation Bindery Department in their library. Fast forward, we moved back to this area, and again, with my history degree, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. Ended up deciding to get a teaching credential in history. So I got my single subject credential, and one day I was down the hall at Flamson Middle School doing a long-term sub job in 8th grade history and not really enjoying it, I'll be perfectly honest. And the teacher librarian that was going between the two middle schools said, "Hey, have you ever thought about going back to school?" I'm like, "Well, I just finished getting my teaching credential." And she said, she's kind of explained what her role was. And I thought that would be a perfect way to blend my love for education and my love for libraries. So that's kind of how I ended up. And then I got hired mid-year and started the program through San Jose State and got my library certificate, credential, and then also the master's degree.
Thanks. Mary, how about you? How did you get involved with school libraries and stuff?
Well, as others have said, I've always loved libraries. My dad started taking me to the library when I was really, really small. And my educational background before becoming interested in libraries, as working in a library, I have a BS from Cal Poly and in education and a teaching credential. And I taught grade 3 here in California before we relocated to Pittsburgh for something my husband was doing, actually working on a further degree. And there I got a job at Kelly Elementary School. I taught grades 4, 5, and 6. And that's where I really saw a school library in action. We had a real school librarian there, which was unheard of in San Luis back in those days. And I started looking at what she was doing, and I talked to her a lot. And she encouraged me to go for a master's degree in library science, which was offered by the University of Pittsburgh. So I did that. And once I got the degree, I started, first of all, subbing in libraries. So I got to see all kinds of different libraries and the different ways school librarians handled their job, and eventually got a permanent place there in an elementary school library. Then we moved back to California, and I worked 1 year in Santa Maria as a cataloging librarian, and then was hired by San Luis Coastal at the district level. I worked for 4 years in training, overseeing, and supporting library techs in 13 elementary schools. We had 13 elementary schools at that time. And after 4 years, the job disappeared and I was transferred to the high school. I was there for 11 years as a high school librarian, and I really, I went kicking and screaming because I loved elementary and middle school, but I found out it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I learned so much. And after being there for 11 years, I asked for a transfer to Laguna Middle, and I was there for 11 years. Along the way, I also got an administration credential from Cal Poly, encouraged by my principal at the time. I never really wanted to be a principal or have anything to do with administrating a school. I wanted to administrate a school library program is what I thought. So that's what I've done and how I got there.
Great, thanks, Mary. And Laura, love to hear from you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Schwer. And like I said, I work at Laguna Middle School. And my path started with a degree from the University of Georgia in education. I was hired to be a math teacher at a middle school and quickly decided after I interviewed for the airlines that I'd rather be a flight attendant. So I told my dad, I'm not going to use any of my degree. I'm going to work for the airlines, but you get free passes, Dad. And so that made it okay. So I worked for the airlines and met a lot of people. And I think that I realized that I love to help people so much and that's definitely my passion for working in libraries, is helping people. But to continue my path, when I moved from Atlanta to the West Coast, I was working at my children's school in the school library and working with a wonderful lady named Debbie Kramer, and she was Michelle's mentor as well, I believe. And I just fell in love with working with the kids and realized I could help the teachers and I could read stories and share literature. And my kids were young then, so we read all the time anyway. So I started the Cuesta program, and I see you all here visiting here, and I think, boy, would I have loved the opportunity like this to get to meet all of these people who are in the field at one time, just like this, and to hear the backgrounds. But I remember being in your shoes as like it was yesterday, and I can't believe I've been doing this for 12 years. So I worked in 2 elementary schools here in our district, and then now I'm at the middle school. I've been there for 8 years. And I also went to San Jose State to continue my lifelong learning, which I love to do as well, and got my master's in library science. So that's how I'm able to also work at Cuesta as a reference librarian. But again, it all circles around to my passion for helping people and just the caring about the well-being of others. So that's my pathway.
Thanks, Laura.
Sure.
I know when I started my career, I started teaching 6th grade, and I was in New Jersey at the time. And that's like Mary, I had a real school librarian, and really got to see what a school library was. And it's funny, I was going through some papers the other day and found a letter I had written to my grandmother when I was 10 years old, and telling her that I had always wanted to be a librarian when I grew up. And I just kind of took a roundabout journey to get there, because I was teaching school first, and then saw this school librarian, and then moved to California and had young kids, and was lost for a while, and then figured, oh, you know what, I'll go and do the library tech program at Cuesta, because I really didn't want to go back into the classroom. And so I was a library tech for 11, 12, 13 years before I realized, I'm doing what a teacher librarian does. And so I went back, because I already had my teaching credential, a multiple subject credential. I went back to San Jose into the teacher librarian program to get that teacher librarian credential, and then realized, oh, it's only 2 more classes to get a master's. I'm just going to get a full master's. So that was really a great experience to work at the district level, and to also work in several school settings. And it was just such a great experience to, like Laura and Michelle and everybody has said, to be with kids, to help them, and to really help them develop that lifelong love of reading and everything. Do we have any questions from anybody so far? I know it sounds like, you have to get a master's to work in a school, but you really don't. Library tech, um, what do you call, certificate is really all that you need for most school districts. I think Atascadero, do you require the certificate? I know San Luis Coastal requires a certificate. Atascadero, do you require the library tech certificate?
We do, just for the secondary positions, but we
Okay.
have people who don't have it yet, and then they have time to complete it.
Okay. How
But
about
yeah, California is really unique in that they don't have certificated librarians at every school. And so the library tech really does a lot of the heavy lifting at the schools. And I think having that certificate can really help you in the job, even if it isn't required. It gives you a really good solid foundation of how to do the job, and what to kind of prioritize and what's important.
Yeah. I think I was just reading on the listserv that California, I think, has maybe 96 teacher credentialed librarians, and then the rest of the staff in the schools are all library techs or library support staff. So, that's, when you consider that there's a lot of students in California, that's like 1 teacher librarian for every 10,000 kids. It's a lot of, it's not a very good ratio like it is in other states, where you have 1 teacher librarian for 700 kids in Texas and places like that. So you don't need a master's to be working in a school. And especially if you're not sure if you really want to be a teacher or not, it's a great way to work with kids and really figure out, is this the right field for me, and to get that experience. So, oh, Lori, I'm sorry. Lori, I forgot if you could share your story also.
I wasn't anticipating being asked because I have not been a school librarian, but I'm happy to tell a quick
Yeah.
version of my story.
Yes, please.
My initial, well, you know what? I think I worked in a library as an undergraduate in the 1990s and I loved it, but I didn't know any path to being a librarian then. And so I thought, well, I'm good at English. I'm just going to do English and then I'm going to be an English teacher. And I was the kind of student who just kind of followed the path of least resistance. So I did an undergraduate degree in English, I did a master's degree in English, and I taught at the community college level for almost 20 years. But I always kind of envied the librarians because of some of the things people have already mentioned. You get to do all the good stuff, and you don't have to do any of the unfun stuff like judging people and giving them grades and grading essays through all hours of the night. So when I was almost 50, I thought, you know, I could stay in this career or I could try and make a move that will make me happier. And so I had some really nice mentors who said, just do it. So I did a master's degree in library science. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and then I wanted to work my way back to California. And so I applied for the job at Cuesta, and here I am. I'm a North County librarian. And when we were meeting in person, that meant I was at the Paso Library, but now I'm primarily working online, one-on-one with students and doing some information literacy type instructions, like teaching people how to find sources and judge whether the sources are good or not. That was not 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
So, moving on, I'm just kind of thinking, and I don't want to have to go around and call on everybody. So please feel free to jump in and just share some of the things that you like most about the job, and maybe one or two really fun things that you have done that have been really rewarding and that students and families have enjoyed. So go for it.
I'll pop in.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention too that I am currently a school librarian and I've worked in other school districts in other states, but I also have experience in public libraries and academic libraries. And I even worked for a semester in an archival library. So if anyone has questions about working in any other libraries, I would be happy to answer that. That is one of the great things about getting a library, either a library certificate like you're working towards at Cuesta, or if you want to go on and do a master's program. There are a lot of different jobs that you can get in the library field. You don't just have to go into school libraries. There's a lot of really exciting library jobs out there. And when I first started, I just love libraries so much that I just wanted to kind of experience a lot of different settings. And so when I was a public librarian, before I decided to get my master's, I drove a bookmobile for 2 years, which was super fun. I don't know why they let a 20-year-old drive a 30-foot vehicle, especially one that's as clumsy as me, but luckily I didn't kill anyone. But that was super fun. When I worked getting my master's degree, I worked in an archival library where we would get collections of things like objects, and we would have to figure out like how to catalog them and create, finding tools for people to be able to use these objects, which was really fascinating to think about. Like how would you catalog an object like you would a book? But I think everything that I've done though always goes back to what everybody else has been saying, is just that love of helping people find stuff that they're looking for. And so if you have that desire, just know that this degree that you're working towards can lead you to down a lot of different career pathways, not just school libraries. So if anybody has any questions about that, I would be happy to answer.
I'm Aubrey. I had a question. My personality is more funneled to children, but as I'm also getting my business degree through as a re-entry student, and my husband is phasing out. That's a very poor picture, and I'm coming back into the career field. It didn't even dawn on me that library and business degrees could go hand in hand, not only in supervisory roles, but also just businesses needing librarians for archival of records, and for that is not where my love is, but that is something that I'm kind of interested in, especially as COVID is kind of reassigning where everybody is. That might be an area that you can do from afar. I just didn't know if anybody had a recommendation, because really school libraries is like, it just is in my blood kind of thing. But taking the library degree farther, and I've thought about doing a master's, and I was actually kind of looking at the San Jose program as well as the one in Wisconsin, and I didn't know if there was a preference of school. I know San Jose is a California school, so the FAFSA likes to work with California schools, but I didn't know if there was a preference of programs. I know that's a lot of questions all in one, but I just didn't know if anybody had experience. Like, it would be a specialty library that the business sector would be in, but I didn't know, because like I said, I would love education and kids, but I also know we're all kind of facing a different placement now. So anyway, if anyone has insight to that.
So Aubrey,
with a library degree, you know, it can be, it's one of those things where it's kind of like getting an education degree. Like, you can sell that in a lot of different ways. You know, as an educator, you can sell your ability to explain, you know, complicated subjects to the layperson like that. My husband got hired in his job because he has an education degree, and he has to write like highly scientific reports for non-science type people. So, I mean, having a library degree, I would just recommend looking at like the schedule of classes at each school and just see what they kind of specialize in. And if there are classes that might address kind of what you're interested in. And you don't have to necessarily specialize. Like, I specialize definitely in school library services, but I was still able to like take a class in museum cataloging and take a class in this type of thing, just because I kind of wanted to keep my options broad. So I think with this type of degree, you can definitely keep your options really broad, and you're marketable in a lot of different fields, even in computer science, because a lot of like web developers and stuff need someone who can design for the user, and that's something that we think about in libraries. Like, we're always thinking about the user services. And
so Aubrey, I think the other thing that's important to look at when you're looking at programs is if they're ALA accredited, and that's the American Library Association, because many times there'll be schools that have a library program, but it's not accredited from the American Library Association. And oftentimes you'll see the job requirement is that you need to have an ALA accredited master's in library science. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're looking at the different programs.
There's also the Special Libraries Association, SLA, and they focus on a lot of different little niche private librarian applications. And you know, with business, there's a lot of need for librarians to do like outreach and figure out funding stuff. Just within a library regular position, it will help you. I know Denise Forey has had a parallel library business of her own for many years, and she gets little contracts with people to work at Cal Poly in special collections, writing a set of, I don't know, setting up a structure for their collections, things like that. So she would be a good one to talk to too. What else?
Ellen, while you're up talking, can you tell us a little bit how you came to libraries and your background?
Briefly, yeah. I was a chemistry major and did marine chemistry, and then I moved to San Luis and worked in a lab, which was not researchy. I guess for me, libraries, it kind of comes back to the research and the inquiry that I've heard from so many of the rest of you. And so I didn't like working in the lab in San Luis. So I started volunteering at Cal Poly and taking Cuesta's library technology classes. And then eventually when I was working at Cal Poly, I was in their learning resources and curriculum, which basically provided teaching materials for teachers. So I did a lot of work managing their state adoption programs and working with lots of teachers and getting to know kids' literature. So that I'm sort of a crossover chemistry, science, kids' literature person. And then I really liked doing reference and research and found out I got to do more of that if I got an MLS in the academic arena anyway. So I got an MLS, one of the first distance programs at Syracuse, and worked at Cal Poly some more, and then finally wound up at Cuesta. And I just love Cuesta students, and I think it's great. I learn something new every day.
One of the most interesting library jobs that I have seen, we went to the Geminology Institute in San Diego, and I saw that there was a library there. And so I kind of wandered back into the library and I started talking to one of the ladies, the lady librarian. They also have gentlemen librarians there too. And lo and behold, they had 5 MLS librarians working there. And I thought, oh, wow, they get to see all of these jewels and beautiful things that come in all the time. But they also are on the phone a lot and on the computer a lot because they get questions from all over the world.
So anybody else have anything that they want to say about what they like most about the job? I'll never forget one time being in library with a class of first graders, and it was the beginning of the year, and a little girl was lying on the floor and reading her book, and she looked up at me and she said, "I can read," and she read out loud for me, and I'll just never forget how excited and happy she was that she could read. And I told her how lucky she was and that nobody could ever take that away from her, that she now had the best gift of all, that she could read. And so just memories like that. And I remember doing a reading camp-in where I had over 100 kids spend the night in the library, and we had different stations and different fun things that we did, just to enjoy the library and that love of reading. And so there's just so much opportunity in a school setting to be creative and really engage and be with kids. I know, Laura, you've done some great things with some of your kids. Can you share some of the things that you've done to make it fun for all of them?
Sure. You reminded me of our literacy night, our literacy event we held past couple of years. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this year, but it's pretty spectacular to see kids come together and actually help plan the event and what they want to see, and to see the families all come together and participating in games, as well as listening to other students sharing book talks. And we get the whole staff, as many that are willing to come after hours, to read and be on stage and read. It's like bringing back that culture of just sharing stories and read alouds. And we even have music. Some of our teachers play music, and the kids are all hands-on involved. And Michelle helped out a lot the past couple years too. So it's really building that community and bringing everybody together. And I think libraries are really good at that, and especially in the schools. if you can find just that niche and the need of just how to connect to the classroom, that I think it's valuable for the library and for our people and their well-being. And we also offer a Reach Club through the library, and that's where students who don't necessarily they're not athletes or scholarly, they just are kind of, I don't want to say misfits, because we have a lot of just a random great group of students who come to the library for Reach Club, and they've just found a place to belong. And I think libraries are also really great at that, finding that safe place for people. And no matter which library or type of library you work at, libraries are safe places. And school library, I like to think of as a safe place. So
I have a little,
Oh,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
I actually had a question concerning everyone who has worked in a school library. Did you know immediately that you liked working with children, or was that sort of something you discovered over the course of going through working on your degrees and things like that?
I knew right away I loved working with children, and because of my teaching career, and then maybe because I had a little sister who was 12 years younger than me, and I got to take care of her a lot, and I just loved that. So I've grown up loving little children.
I was actually quite scared of them at first. I mean, sixth graders are way different from kindergartners, and I was really afraid at first because, I mean, I knew I had young kids, but you don't have 30 of them. So, it took a while to figure out how I fit with them and everything like that. And it wasn't that I disliked them, I was just scared of them at first. I related much better to the older group, from like fourth grade on up. So, again, it wasn't a question of knowing whether or not I liked being with kids. It was just getting used to how kids were and how they think and how they see things, because what we see is black and white and stuff like that, they see in all different kinds of colors and ways. And so that was me.
I agree, Sharon. The first time I subbed at sixth grade at the middle school, I was so scared. The teacher kept coming to check on me because they were doing a training. I'm like, this is my first time subbing. I don't know what I'm doing. And what are these kids doing? But then I got so used to middle school. And so when I ended up having to be relocated to the high school, I was scared of the high school kids because I didn't know what to expect. But now they're my favorite. They're great group. So
That's actually one thing I really love about my job, is because a district librarian can seem really overwhelming because you have so many schools that you manage. But I love working with every age group. And so that affords me the chance to go, and one day I could be reading to like kindergartners. This actually happened one day. I was reading to a bunch of kindergartners, and then I had to run over to the high school because then I was helping this teacher with this big like technology project he wanted to do with his seniors. And so it was like I went from all these tiny little squirrely kids to, in an hour, like these big old seniors. And so, but it's funny because when I was at the elementary school and I was saying like, oh, I got to go over to the high school, the kindergarten teacher was like, I don't know how you can do it. I'm so scared of those big kids. And then when I got to the high school, the senior teacher was like, I don't know how you could do it. I would be so scared to stand in front of a bunch of 5 or 5-year-olds. So I just have always enjoyed working with kids. I always, like in high school, worked at camps, and I just kind of knew I wanted to do something with kids because I love like the energy of being around kids. And I think that's just, now that I'm older too, it's just helped me stay really young because you're just around like their energy, and there's something really magical and special about that.
I would add too, if you feel intimidated by it, to have opportunities to be around other people who are really skilled with having a whole room full of children, which can seem overwhelming when you're new at it. but being able to watch like either a mentor librarian or a mentor teacher, I think is really helpful.
Thanks, Julian. That was a great question. Are there any other questions so far?
I was just thinking that when you're a library technology student, well, actually, when you're any kind of a student, it's such a unique opportunity to explore. You can have a meeting with anybody. You can ask anyone to talk to you, a library director or a board of supervisors. And it's just such, I would encourage you to use your assignments to reach out and get to know people. And, you know, Julian, you could maybe volunteer in a library for a few weeks and say, oh, I love this, or I'm never doing that again. Where's the nearest college library around here? Or whatever, you know, it's just a great opportunity to try different things and to talk to people. I mean, like if you're a new employee, you can't really walk up to the president of the company and ask to have a chat about corporate policy. But if you're a student, you can. So I would encourage you to use this rare position in your life to learn and explore.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I love what you said too, Michelle, is just, I had an elementary tech who wanted to apply for a high school opening. And I just, in my heart, I just didn't know if she would really love that. So I told her, you know, come over at lunch when we have 200 kids in here, high schoolers, and just see what you think. Just come and just sit here at my desk or sit at the circulation desk and just watch. And after she did that, she's like, yeah, you're right. I want to stay in the elementary school. But I think that's the other thing about librarians. We just want everyone to love the library. And so if any of you in this meeting ever want to, it's hard now because we're not in person. But I mean, I meet with kids. I have a library club and we meet regularly. If you ever wanted to come just to one of our meetings and pop in, you know, I'd be happy to just have you come as a guest and even just share with the kids, like you're going to be a librarian. Like they would love to hear about your experiences because they're all getting ready to go to college. So if you ever just wanted to be able to have that experience and just see, like, I just kind of want to see what it's like, I think anyone in this meeting would be happy to have you come, like observe or just pop in one of our Google Meets or anything like that. So that's a really great way to just kind of observe and see, like, could I picture myself doing this kind of thing?
Okay, thanks everybody. So my next question is the qualities. What do you feel are some of the most important qualities to have for working in a school setting? And you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, do you have to like kids, and which is helpful, but what do you feel are the most important qualities that when you're hiring a tech or working in a school setting that one should have?
I think being patient and friendly and welcoming everyone in a friendly way, and with your future admin and teachers who don't understand the depth of library management and the ability to bring them, you want to create the ability to bring them along in a friendly way and educate them in a kind and non-threatening manner. I found out through my administration credential classes that there's nothing said to future principals or other administrations about the library. And so they have no idea about really what you do and the depth of what you do. And so you really should be educating them along the way in a non-preaching way. You know, show them what you're doing and what it takes to do what you have to do.
I'd like to echo the being welcoming, and definitely customer service. Like you're going to be dealing with a lot of different personalities, and just being able to handle maybe a teacher that's frustrated or a parent that's frustrated over a fine for a book or things like that. And flexibility is also very important, because especially as all my library techs are learning right now, their jobs have changed and they're more technology based, and they're really having to step up, and they've all been great. So I'd say customer service and flexibility.
I might also add multitasking, because you will never be able to finish something you're doing in one piece. You have to take it by step after step, and go back to it and say, oh, what was I doing? Oh yeah, okay, let me get back to that.
Yeah, I also think that prioritizing and knowing what's the most important thing you need to accomplish. And I know that many times I'd be driving into work thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do today, and this is what I have down written in my lessons and my plans and everything. And the minute I get to school and run into that first teacher or open my email, boom, that was all out the window. So being able to prioritize and be flexible, and just know that, it's not set in stone. It's, you have to go with the punches. And I'll never forget, the first day that it rained, for example, that the kids are so on edge and just so excited because we're having rain for the first time, and everybody has to go to the bathroom because they want to go jump in the puddles. But it's, you change your story because, oh, it's raining, and let me find a raining story that would really be important for these kids right now who are just so excited because we haven't had rain for a long period of time, so anything like that, just something unusual that happens. And so it's, that flexibility and learning to prioritize really is important.
I
Anybody
also
else?
think, Sharon, I agree about the flexibility, and it's important to definitely have an open mind, especially in today's world, and to be adaptable. And I also think it's very important to have a sense of humor, because if you don't have a sense of humor, your feelings are going to be hurt left and right. You really need to remember that, it can be funny too. So, and understanding the big picture too has been helpful for me in the school library. Understanding the classroom's perspective as well as admin's perspective and students' perspective, just the overall big picture from the library, I think is very important to have a successful library and to make it enjoyable for everyone.
When I was becoming a teacher and working through those classes, a principal came to our class to talk about what she looks for in an interview. And the one thing that stands out, and this was like 27 years ago that this woman said this, was she said, I always ask, why do you want to be a teacher? And she said, if anyone gives me any other answer than because I love children, it's like she counts it down. So her big thing that she always looks for people to say first is not that you love literature, that you just love doing algebra. It's that you love children, because if you don't love children, you're not going to love teaching. And so for me, I mean, I've worked in lots of different settings and had to hire for different positions, but when I'm hiring for a library tech, I do ask that question, and I find myself looking for some version of that answer, either in I love working with people, or I love kids, or I love connecting people with information, something to do with that. Because if you don't love that, you won't love being in a school. Because to me, the school library is so important for so many kids. And I seriously, it sounds very cliche to say I want it to be the hub, but I want it to be the place where it's everyone's classroom. Like the library is everyone's classroom, the kids, the teachers, the administrators, the staff. And that is just like my overriding philosophy that I want everyone to feel when they walk through those doors, is just that, wow, I belong here. And if they feel that, then everything else can happen. The research can happen, the information literacy can happen, the love of reading can happen. But if you don't have that connection or that relationship building, then I don't think you're as successful as you could be. So for me, that's like the most important thing that I look for.
I have a question for you, school librarians. So for professional associations, there's the American Association of School Librarians, which is part of ALA, right? And are there other good school library associations?
Well, the California School Library Association is a
Oh,
great
right.
organization to belong to. And they have a listserv that where people post all different kinds of questions and resources and everything. And I think they have a student fee that, that's a well reduced from what the regular dues are. And it's the same with the American Library Association, that for a student that you can join for, I think it's only like $35. It's not very much. So those are the two that I know of. And if you're in a different state, I would assume that each state would have their public library and school library portion where you could join those associations.
Right.
In the last 5
A lot of there's in the California State Library Association, there's different regions. And so each region kind of has their little group
Right.
like within that. And right now, they're offering a lot of free training. Like, so normally you'd pay to go to like the Southern Region Conference, which is like this day-long conference, but some of them are offering it for free just because they can just do it through Zoom or Google Meet. So getting on that listserv is actually a really great resource, and just to watch for opportunities like that. That's kind of the benefit of this time, which is really horrible, but also it's been affording people all of these really cool opportunities to do things that normally you'd have to travel for or pay for. So you can go to for a minimal fee or free. So that's another resource too.
Library blogs, school library blogs are a great place to get some information too. I think listservs are gradually being phased out, but the area of blogs is a good place to go look in the school library area.
Yeah, the School Library Journal has a couple of really great blogs and things like that that are really a great resource. So Michelle and a couple of people have put links to the California School Library Association and the listservs and ALA that you might want to look at those resources. So we're kind of nearing the end of our time. So we want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that maybe we haven't talked about or addressed, or anything else you want to know. So speak now, or forever hold your peace. But please feel free to ask us any questions that you want to know.
You don't really have to forever hold your peace. You could always
Exactly.
email us. She was kidding.
One of the things that working in a school library also, it really has opened a lot of doors for me. Like I applied to be on the California Young Reader Medal Committee. And so I was on a committee for a reading program for the whole state of California. And that really has opened doors for me where in the bigger picture, like this next year, I'm going to be on the Caldecott Committee for the American Library Association. So it's such a great opportunity to really take advantage of being able to volunteer and share what gifts that you have. And I know, Chris, you work with Battle of the Books, is that right?
Yes. I don't know if you guys want to, I feel like I talk too much, so
That's all right.
talk about it if anybody's interested, but I'm trying to really I'm trying to hold my peace, Sharon.
But
Oh,
Battle of the Books is a huge nationwide program, isn't it?
Right. So Stephanie does Battle of Books too. So it's a nationwide program that students in the elementary schools 4th through 5th grade can participate in. And I actually help with the selecting of titles a little bit. They have a really small committee that selects titles. But the Battle of the Books is just, if you want to participate in it, you can participate in it, you can. They send you lists with certain books to read. Kids read books off that list. They have to read a certain number. And then at the end of the year, they can compete, just kind of getting asked game show type questions of what they remember from the books. And it's just a fun way to encourage reading. But Paso does it too. I think some schools in SLO are doing it, not all, but
San Luis did do it a lot in the past. I'm not sure what they're doing with it right now, but I've noticed that it is nationwide, but every state has their own lists.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of different organizations that do that, like Battle of the Books is a national one. So if you go with them, you know, you can do their list. But then there's different state award lists, like we have the California Young Reader Medal, but each state kind of has their own award type programs. Yeah.
Yeah. Julian, did you have a question again?
I did, but it was more just based on my personal experiences and also the fact that I'm young. But I, for a little bit, was studying to go into a folklore degree, and I sort of turned in going into trying to become a librarian because for a little bit I couldn't figure out what I would do with that or how that would translate. But I really went into that because I love sharing stories with people and just getting to talk to people and know who they are and what they want to know. But I was curious, do you know if there's anything, at least school library related, that any sort of my skill set like that could slide into?
Oh, absolutely. Storytelling is a huge piece in the school library setting. In fact, I took storytelling classes, and there would be nothing lost. And there's whole workshops that are done with storytelling at conferences and things like that. That storytelling is such a great part of getting kids excited about the library and reading and literature and folklore and their history in their family and things like that. Yes, that's absolutely a great gift and skill. And so I saw Chris had her hand up, and then Aubrey.
I want to say something. So Julian, when I went to library school at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, I also worked at the public library there, and every single person in the children's department was also a professional storyteller. So they worked as a librarian, but then they also like traveled to all these amazing storytelling festivals, and they were legit professional storytellers, which was so cool. And so like their story times were amazing because they were just these beautiful storytellers. But the thing that was really also very cool tied into that is it was so I keep saying amazing because it was amazing to like go into their public library and look at their fairy tale and folktale collection. It just would like blow your mind. And then at the university, there was a special collections librarian that focused on folklore. And so, I mean, if this is an interest that you have, not only can you apply it just if you were a children's librarian, obviously you would be storytelling all the time when you did shared stories or doing story time, but there is also a possibility of, you know, following that interest and either taking it the route of professional storytelling or going into more of an academic library setting. Like if you were feeling like maybe I don't really want to work with children, but I really want to study the folklore, there actually are like academic library positions where you specialize in certain collections. And so you could work at an academic library specializing in the folklore collection or in the history collection or the government document collection. So that's a cool way that you could look into, you know, combining those two interests. So.
And Julian, there's a storyteller up in Cayucas. I'm going to put his message in the, his website. But Kirk Henning is a really great storyteller, and he does stories around the campfire on the beach in Cayucas. I don't know if he's currently doing that right now, but he's an absolutely wonderful person if you ever get the opportunity to see him in person. And he's a great storyteller that's local that you could talk to.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was very nice to hear.
I just wanted to piggyback on Julian. How I got into libraryship is very backdoor, and that I was on my kids' PTA, and I found out the PTA paid for our librarian, and it was the crown jewel of the school. And through PTA, we got to pick out programs through, I'm in Santa Barbara County, by the way, I'm in Lompoc. Through the Children's Creative Project,
Right.
we had a catalog of peoples and groups that could come, and we specifically picked the storyteller group. Now, sometimes that was through PCPA. They have a group of storytellers and actors, but there was numerous groups of storytellers, and they would have bookings all through California, and there's definitely a place for the storytellers. In fact, this is a fun fact. Jim Henson's daughter from the Muppets, she got her Harvard degree in storytelling, folklore, and it's fascinating. Now she's managing the company, but she has a fascinating degree in Harvard. My son, who does just did a Nordic mythology class online, they had a storyteller who did them online. It wasn't even the teacher, but she implemented his storytelling videos because they were so good. So there's a huge field. It's just, you got to get into that, just crack open the door, and it's huge. So
Right.
sorry, that was a
No, that's perfect, Aubrey. Thank you. Are
I
there,
wonder if there's a
as,
Storytellers Association
Mhm.
or something like that. I'm also thinking that this is such a fabulous time to go to conferences that used to be held somewhere far, far away, and now you might be able to go virtually at a student price. Like I'm still thinking about Special Libraries Association. And the other thing I thought about special libraries, I know this is kind of off topic, is they tend, when I was looking into them, they tended not to care so much about credentials. They more cared about whether you could do the work. Like, can you write code and get this stuff organized?
Yeah.
So more stuff to check out.
So are there any other questions? It's now 6:03 past our time, so I just want to make sure that there aren't any other questions, or if anybody has anything else they want to contribute, or a pearl of wisdom that they'd like to offer our Cuesta students, or anything that might be helpful to them.
I see Carissa is wondering if there are any classes outside the LIBT program that we particularly recommend.
There's the children's literature class. And I think, well, is the web design class, is that an LIBT class? The one, Kevin's class?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Well, I think it is. It's an elective.
It's an elective, yeah.
And
So,
children's lit class is also an elective, and it's required for the certificate,
right.
or one of the certificates.
I think if there's any, because I know library techs or people in the library setting wear many, many hats. And so having skills such as coding, or knowing how to do web page, or how to do WordPress, those kind of skills are really crucial. So, and if you have any graphic design background with putting together newsletters or anything like that, those would be helpful. They're not required. You kind of learn by the seat of your pants when you're doing it in the actual school setting, but anything that can enhance what skills you bring. I know, Michelle, weren't you a master gardener? And that was one of the things that really, when we hired you, was exciting to the principal.
Yes, I actually, one piece of advice that I got as a Cuesta student was from Lori, who used to work in the Cuesta library. And she said to me one day, nothing you have done on your journey is wasted.
Mm.
And I 100% agree, because when you are working in the library field, whatever life experience you have, as removed from library as you think it might be, it will come up and you will use it. So whatever other nuggets you have from life, they will be used, and nothing is wasted, which I have found to be true.
That comes in helpful when you have to hatch chickens in the library too, right?
I wholeheartedly agree with that because you never know what question you're going to be asked by the person who walks through the door. So I would say if you're interested in going into school libraries, you know, maybe even just taking a class in early childhood education if you're interested in working with elementary school kids, or child psychology or something like that would be useful to you. If you're interested in going into some other type of library setting, you know, like Aubrey, you mentioned maybe combining business and libraries, you know, well, looking at a business course might be interesting. Doing any kind of technology course is going to help you. But Michelle, you're absolutely right. Just any experience you have that you bring to the table will only help you in the job.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for participating and joining us here this evening. You've all just offered so many great anecdotal pieces that I think are important for our students to hear. And our students, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I hope this has helped you. This recording will be archived. I think it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and we can certainly send out a transcript to you if you want one. And all the questions in chat will be there also. So I hope you all have a great evening, and it's great to see everyone, and thank you so much. It's great to see all of you.
Thanks for getting us together.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.